Stoked as we are for this last round. Best of 9. It is going to be both players here going for their respective physics, doing these little runarounds. Is that going to be a thrusting sword here we have on the side of Kieran? No, it's an LGS.
It is
LB.
Milady.
Very nicely done, but we are going to see the hyper armor coming out here, and those R2s coming out into sword dance here on the side of Kieran, trying to keep up that nice little bit of pressure. Heaven, of course, forced back now once again, looking at both of these plays. LB, have you had a chance to play around with LGS, and if so, what does that setup really do? What's the general vibe of it?
It is kind of a throwback to a poise counting setup. You need to find your chips. You need to find your ways to get your R2s to break. And when you get your R2s to break, you have a lot of chain attacks that you can get. But it does look like Kieran has said, you know what? I'm going to go back to Old Faithful here. He switches back over to the heavy thrusting sword, and then we actually see the swap on Apata's back around, which leads back to the light greatsword. And the light greatsword has phenomenal corner pressure, and we see the swaps back and forth. We're just seeing a swap back and forth. You're going hyper armor, I'm going hyper armor, you're taking it off. I'm going to take it off, and we'll see who breaks first here, Enda. But I actually tend to prefer, I like the moveset of the light greatsword with the two-handed. Great jumping R2 there. Absolutely phenomenal. I mean, you see one of the neat things with the R2 having a built-in backswing into one press of a button. You have really interesting setups that you can kind of set some frame traps up. Sword dance complements it so well. Gives you the poise break that you need. Great damage there coming through from Kieran. It looks like Heaven is just going to commit, saying, okay, well, I'll just learn how to fight this with my fists then, because I don't want to fight your heavy thrusting sword. But we do see now as these R2s coming through there from the side of Kieran with the jumping R1 there as well, and now resetting back to a neutral. But we do see the poke coming through there from that into the backswing and able to land either as a running attack coming through from Heaven. Really has to play this really smart and clean to clean this one up, and the R1 is going to catch there, though. Those attacks chain together so fast. It is one of those things that the backswings, it can get absolutely detrimental. We do see really good pressure there coming through. Great roll catch there, and goes for the running R1 into the jumping R2. Unable to find either as the pressure now resetting here. Kieran trying to find the way in, and now we just see these jumps in neutral. Goes for the poke, trying to find the backswing into the sword dance. Unable to land anything there, as now we do see a bit of a reset to a neutral. Heaven just hanging out. Throws a Frostpot out, trying to find any damage he can. The R2 trade is unfortunately not going to be the trade that he needed, as Kieran's going to clean that up. But yeah, as I was saying, Enda, the light greatsword, really interesting poise counting setup. It can be absolutely detrimental when you do land those poise breaks. You get a lot of successive damage that can just pile on top of it. As I say, kind of has those built-in backswings with that R2. Really interesting. I tend to prefer, I like the moveset two-handed the most, but I tend to prefer it in a competitive sense with something in the offhand to help with that chip noise. Help with that poise counting, something like the Smith's Grip Dagger, something like a crossbow, even something like a regular dagger, just to get that little bit of a chip in, and now, okay, I break them. And it kind of is a really interesting thing that brings back poise counting.
Yeah, for sure. And the things that I've seen people play around with is it's either two-handed as an R2 stick, is seemingly one of the more popular options. Obviously, you're looking at that absolutely nuclear tier damage that's just able to go to town, do what needs to be done. But as well as that, you see things like spread crossbow come into play, where they're able to get that pretty much guaranteed chip, keep up that pressure, and actually manage to get that poise break. It's very impressive. I'll be curious to see what this is actually going to happen here. But either way, let's get this next round underway. It is going to be Heaven versus Kieran, both borderline the exact same values in health. I think there's like 30 or 40 health in the difference here, but either way, the physics come out, the patas are greased up, and the R2s come out there to try and get that nice little bit of chip right off the bat. And again, going for those jumping attacks, trying to catch people off guard. With the fact he manages to get a nice little bit of chip here, he does have a guaranteed means of actually getting poise break here, and you see the danger of that actual poise counting coming through here, as we are going to see Heaven taking a nice tasty amount of damage. Get that little bit of chip in, even if you only land half of the hits here, force them under pressure, and then the R2s come out there, and a little bit of poise chip as well, just to try and keep that. He is now in the danger zone as the R2s come out there. Wasted that opportunity of that poise damage there, as we see the LGS come out there. The sword dance comes through all of that there to try and get that nice little bit of damage. We are going to, of course, see Kieran here keeping up that pressure. Goes for the R1. We see the poise back chipped again on that ghost hit there as well, which is, of course, going to come in pretty clutch. And Kieran there managing to actually leveraged that there, getting that actual bit of damage there, and Heaven is just not able to adapt to it. And I know the feeling, LB, you're actually poised chipped, you're not quite sure the moveset. Very few people rock this setup, and it's very hard to get used to the fact that it's, like I said about earlier on about Freeds, in DS3, you're able to get that nice amount of damage, you force them out there, they think they're in a position to punish, but speaking of punishes, into that sword dance there to punish that overextension here on the side of Heaven, who is pushed back now 1300 to 600 in the favor of Kieran plus tier. The tier is not proc yet, and that's going to be 2 ghost hits there, not quite able to get the damage in. The standing R1 comes out there, but is going to be interrupted. But speaking of interrupt there, we do see that standing R1 there, try and get that little bit of damage, and Kieran scampers off with yet another victory under his belt. What a round. What a round. And they're doing such a good... Kieran's doing such a good job here of just keeping up that nice bit of pressure. He understands when he's safe to go in for that sword dance, a very, very fast hyper armor that's able to do decent damage and really force Heaven, who is a very high momentum setup. It's able to cover an awful lot of ground, but that goes both ways. You have time to get that sword dance out.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing that light greatsword lacks, and we've talked about it a little bit, is going to be obviously poise damage, but it does lack a bit of tracking.
Yes.
If you do not play it, if you don't play it pretty much to the point of perfection, you can get punished so fast, and you can get punished for a lot of damage. You can, unironically, if they do a running attack, you can just passive poise backstab them. That is just something you can do against the weapon, right? So it really forces you to play this play style where it's okay, I got some poise damage in. I'm just gonna hang out now, and now I'm gonna wait for you to come to me. And now I can play that. Now I'm gonna get guaranteed damage. Oh, I got my guaranteed damage with the moveset. I can chain in an R1 and do an R2, right? You get those different interactions with it, and that is where it's just so incredibly. It can be so incredibly strong. I do still, as far as matchups go, I do still like the patas into it. However, Kieran is just playing it so phenomenally well, and like you mentioned before, I think there's a little bit of a knowledge check that goes into learning how to play the weapon.
Yeah, I've definitely, and because it does have quite. And this is maybe just a general problem as more of a general thing. The damage, even though they don't have that poise break, they still have that very, very high damage, especially with stacking all your millicents, your prosthesis. You have all of that. You have just all these things that can do extra damage. But either way, we are going to see both of our players here chilling in neutral. Oh, they are mirroring. Interesting. If it's working for him, it might work for me, says Heaven, Force back in there once again. We are going to see both of our players here going for their nice little attempts to catch each other on the aggression, which is nice. And the Frostpot comes out, but it is going to be punished there by Kieran, who just goes through just the twirly whirlies going out here as well. And speaking of twirly whirlies, the sword dance comes out here on the side of Heaven as well to try and keep up that. We do see the swap over just to try and get that light little bit of damage. Force back in now once again. We do see that R2 come out, but Kieran's doing a good job of just forcing that and managing to actually get the poise break on that, and another bit of poise chip into the second. I believe that was the third swing there that actually managed to catch. So many moves as we are going to see the switch back over to Patas here on the side of Heaven. He figures, you know what, listen, I tried it, it's not quite my style. I'm going to go for that R stick that covers half the map, and he goes back in there, goes for another running attack. The R2 there from neutral, actually managing to land there, goes for a punish, and Kieran has taken some very, very heavy damage. Forced back in there once again, and managing to get another little bit of chip there as well, at least in poise chip terms. Forced back in now, it is going to be a health advantage in the favor of Kieran by a very substantial margin. The LGS just doing a great job of keeping up that bit of pressure, and I'm surprised to see it do as well as it does, LB, but it actually makes a huge amount of sense. A huge amount of sense here. Again, punishing that forward momentum, actually being able to punish those poor roll discipline here on the side of Heaven, but Heaven's not out of it yet. He can do an insane amount of damage with those patas, so I'm kind of curious to see as the sword dance comes out there. Dance. 14 HP in a dream. Are we going to be able to see it? The Crouch R1 comes out there, which is a very, very fast attack, I'll have you know. Very, very crazy as we're going to see it here. The grease is down. Is he going to be able to risk getting the reset on that? Because again, if he guesses incorrectly and Kieran's in range, he's going to be able to put him away there. That is a win condition here. Wait for something with a bit of momentum to it. As that pressure comes through, just about by a hair's breadth, manages to roll that out as the side of Heaven. Force back in! And actually manages to land that hit. LB, what is going on here, brother? What is going on?
There's two things I do want to highlight. You kind of touched on it a little bit with that crouch attack being really fast, but the neutral R1 is actually really quick. It's not something you see used a lot because it's kind of like I need a poise count, so like I'm gonna pop in with this R1 and now I can use my weapon. Right now I have reliable poise break. But you saw it actually there at the end with a finisher from the side of Kieran. It is a really, really quick attack. The crouch attack is also incredibly fast. It has it's a little bit telegraphed, but it still requires pretty solid roll timing because the telegraph doesn't do it justice for how quickly it comes out. And again, when you have animation blending, the telegraph only helps you so much anyways, because with the crouches and things like that, it's going to be very hard to roll it. So those two attacks in tandem with utilizing the R2s is what makes the weapon actually usable, and what makes it where it can be pretty strong is utilizing those little bit of pokes here and there, poke here and there. Okay, I can break them now. I hit them with my fast attack. Now I can actually break them with an R2 chain and maybe even get a backswing off of it, and that's going to re-break them again because of poise counting and all of that stuff. So it is the epitome of a poise count setup, and Kieran understands that very, very well. Heaven struggling a little bit to learn the moveset.
Well, it remains to be seen here as we move on to match 4 here. Will we see a reverse sweep incoming here from the side of Heaven? Back on the Sasha by the looks of things, LB. Force back in it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a comfort thing here, as we do see that running R1 coming out, as we do see Kieran in the menu. And what does Kieran switch to? He's going to switch over to the heavy thrusting sword. So again, it's just I have an answer for whatever you're going to do, and I'm going to keep my answer on no matter what. And I do appreciate that Heaven has committed now. He's just going to learn the matchup with, again, a weapon that he's a little bit more comfortable with. And I think that goes a long way. The comfort pick can be really, really big. But Kieran definitely likes this matchup. He went 2-0 against this matchup before Heaven started to work on a reverse sweep in the first stock that we saw them in. We do see the running R2 coming out there, another pressure coming through, going for that jump attack. Is going to be the side of Kieran. The running R1 now from Heaven, trying to break that out, but Kieran is going to be able to kind of hang out in a neutral here. Heaven at a bit of a health advantage here as you see this pokes trying to find pressure through, and switches back over to the passives. Is he going to catch it before the light greatsword comes out? He's not, and now we're going to see that right back in, and immediately swaps over to the great katana. So I gotta say, I do appreciate the stubbornness of these two players, that they know what weapon that they want to fight each weapon on, and they are absolutely sticking on it. Great little bit of poise damage there comes out from the side of Kieran. So now we have to watch this next R2 and next R1 is going to break poise. Is Heaven going to be able to work off of that, as we now see the pokes coming through there? But the hyper armor might actually be the answer that Heaven needs here, as Kieran trying to find the way in, and they see the jump attack coming out, unable to find pressure there. The jump into neutral there, goes for the R1 late. There is going to be the side of Kieran trying to find pressure, but Heaven able to get away from it. Is that now resetting into a neutral? Pressure coming through here. The R1 unable to find the poke, goes for the R1 follow up there as well. And now the jump into actually nothing, just jumps over the attack, resets to a neutral, and is now trying to find the way in, as now the poke comes through. And now we're going to see that heavy thrusting sword swap come back, and there's the pad. Is on a soft swap. Is actually going to be actually not a soft swap. It looks like it's an offhand. Is the side of Heaven, and says, I don't care. But able to see that immediately is going to be the side of Heaven to take advantage of the fact that the light greatsword is now what he is fighting against, as Kieran trying to find the pressure. The R2 is coming through, unable to find too much there, as we now see the pressure coming through here. Good jump R1 from the side of Kieran, unable to land too much, and the health advantage is slowly becoming apparent in favor of Heaven here. Heaven has found his footing, but there's that poise break. The hyper armor is going to come through anyways, though, from the side of Heaven. So really good setup from Kieran to find the poise break and get the pressure forward. Another great set of the poise counting to find the damage there, and now hyper armor is going to come through, reset that a little bit, and the jump R2 is not going to land. The backswing from the side of Heaven finds the vortex there as well, and goes for that running attack. Unable to find too much as the poke comes through here. Now from the side of Kieran, unable to land anything as they reset them back into a neutral here. Kieran trying to find the pressure forward, has to make up a good fair bit of health, but still has a tier to go through there as well. Going through the backswing on the R1 there, and kind of keeps poking it out. Dead angle's behind, realizing that he's kind of made a mistake in terms of space, and Heaven still trying to punish it. Unable to land too much. The running R2 not going to land anything. Is going to be the side of Kieran. The jump R1 into the follow-up, unable to land anything. A lot of ghost hits going on here. A lot of really clean rolls coming out from each side here. So running attack's going to come through the jump over the backswing. Great play from Kieran there to get away from that, as we do see the continued neutral of these players just trying to find a way in. Still has to get, actually, I think the tier has expired now for the side of Heaven, so it could level things out now for Kieran as he's trying to make this comeback come alive. As we do see the running R1 there, unable to land the sword dance, able to clean it up, and now we have a clear advantage for Kieran. Kieran does not want to drop a stock in this. He wants to go 5-0. Jumping over it, trying to find the R1 there, says, you can play Rajaka. I'm still going to stay on light greatsword. Great running jumping attack to counter out the running attack, and the jumping R2 unable to find the backswing on the part of that. Is going to be the side of Kieran now, as we're resetting yet again to another neutral, trying to find the pressure forward, jumping back and forth. Great backswing on the R2 to find the pressure there. Good poke comes through from the side of Kieran now, and actually able to train that into the running attack, and now going for the crouch and able to land that as the pressure coming back now from the side of Kieran. Pretty level health on each side. The blue feather out for the side of Heaven, and now also on the side, actually that's Red Feather on the side of Kieran. Kieran says, you can have more absorption, I'll take the damage, and I'm going to clean this one up here. Tries to find the jumping R1 there, but now we're going to see the catch coming through for the running R2 from the side of Heaven. I really love that running R2 there, and he has conditioned him so many times to find the punish with the running R1 that the running R2 is a phenomenal mix up there.
No, a very, very, really, really nice plays here on the side of both of them, LB. Like you're seeing, you mentioned the poise chip. The Rakshasha is very annoying setup to go for that, because of the resets of poise. So here's how poise works, just for everyone so you're aware. Basically, the way it works is when you use a hyper armor weapon, it basically refills up the bar in so much poise that actually comes in. They've changed the values over the last while, but an awful lot of the DLC stuff seems to be on the old system. So refilling poise using hyper armor is a tried and true. You used to see it in Dark Souls 3 as well. Between rounds and fight clubs, it's like, okay, I need to refill my poise. I'm just going to Uggs or Endure or one of those things to just get that bar right back up where it needs to. Wasn't quite as relevant in that game. It very much is in this one. If anyone ever says something like, oh, and you don't understand why, it's like, oh, Twin Blade gets shut down by hyper armor, last patch especially in this game. Well, the reason for it is quite simple. The reason is you can't get that poise. It invalidates all your poise chips, so you can't get your big damage combos out from that run R2. So, you know, the second part of the R2, you know, it's kind of crazy. Curious that Kieran is actually sticking on those on the LGS versus the cat. I think a counter pick might have been better, but you know what? We'll just have to wait and see what happens as we are 3-1, round 5 in this best of 9. LBU, are you at the ready?
I am all set.
Hells to the yes. 3-1 on that last stock as well, LB. Probably the longest one we've seen so far.
Absolutely. The bolt is going to be in. Our physics are going to be drank and actually just going to stay on the light great sword. Again, Kieran, you mentioned the counter picks. Kieran's tried to counter pick. I think he would just rather fight this than fight Patas on the light great, on the heavy thrusting sword. But the anti-air coming through there from the neutral R1 on the great katana, really good utilization of mixing in those neutral R1s. Good little poise chip there. But again, the bar is going to get filled back up. Does manage to find an R2 to break the poise there. Is going to be the side of Kieran, able to get a pretty good set of damage off of it. And there's going to be just kind of swinging in there, hoping that Heaven wants to take a bit of a trade, but there's the trade that Heaven wants, and Kieran is going to fall victim to it as they're resetting to a neutral here, trying to find the way through. The Talisman swaps coming through on both sides here, going for full successive attack is going to be the side of Heaven, but great jump attack there from Kieran, able to find that pressure, and we're going to see a little bit of a health advantage starting to favor Kieran here. Yeah,
definitely, and looking at it here so far, the amount of chip that we're seeing, slowly but surely, you know, it's a death by 1,000 cuts, as someone might say. It's, you know, it's a bit of a battle of attrition going on here, you know, keeping up that nice amount of damage, getting it slowly but surely, chipping him away. That's kind of going to be the play here overall. Slowly but surely, just make sure that he forces Heaven into a position where he has to make risky plays in order to bring it back. But those missed spaces and stuff like that are going to be very, very costly, as we are going to see the tier procced now on the side of Heaven. Kieran with a fairly dominant, but that backstab grab is going to be pretty tragic here. You know, there's some drywall that's just after getting borked there after that one. As we are going to see Kieran now continuing here with these jump R2s. Definitely the play here to try and get that extra bit of damage. We may see some standing R2s to try and punish any over-aggression. Or, even better, sword dance coming through, LB.
Yeah, and Sword Dance complements the light great sword so well too. If we have the corner pressure, and there it is, able to get the strafe around though. Is going to be the side of Heaven. Ooh, nice little bit of damage comes through there from the side of Kieran, and he's able to clean that up. And he actually found the footing there to comfortably take this one into a 4-1 lead, putting this onto a match point.
Match point. It's do or die now for Heaven if he's not able to bring this one back. LB, you know, an awful lot of these have been some pretty interesting stocks, and it's been not as one-sided as I was expecting for the LGS. It's actually holding its own here, managing to get those nice little bits of chip, nice tasty amounts of damage. Here on leveraging the fact that, yeah, your weapon's fast, but I also have means of engaging with you in a way that actually kind of counters your setup. Having an awful lot of air attacks, especially against something like Great Katana, can be very rough, and not having an Ash of War that's like particularly usable as well is going to be pretty problematic here for Heaven. But we'll see if he goes for a swap. He's electing to stay on that Great Cat by the looks of things, and LB, it's time for what could be match point. And ladies and gents, 4 to Kieran, 1 to Heaven, and on a 3 and a 2 and a 1, Allez.
And the tiers coming out from each side here, looking for some early chip, is going to be the side of Heaven with those daggers. I'm going to land too much. Kieran just kind of jumping back and forth here. Actually taking to the air himself is going to be the side of Heaven. The running attack unable to land too much. Great backswing there. Delays it just enough to get the anti-air on it. And the jumping R2 into the R1 following up from the side of Kieran. Unable to land any of those now, as switching back over to that heavy thrusting sword, deciding, you know what, enough of this. I'm going to play the weapon I want to play. And great jump R1 there to find the pressure. And now just actually does a bit of a reverse jump there. Says, yeah, you can run into me. Does not take the bait though, but now the pattas are coming out. And what are we going to see this fighting? And into Shamshir. Oh, actually not. Bit of a misclick there. Does stick onto the late great sword, and now trying to find the pressure is going to be the side of Kieran. And I think Heaven might actually just stick with the pattas into the late great sword here. I'm very curious to see how that's going to work. Great pressure that the flame strike manages to catch. Follows it up with the R2 as well. And R2 in the neutral there. And now we're going to see the late great sword trying to make it work. Is going to be the side of Kieran, but Heaven looking really good in this one with these pattas out.
Yeah, and the pattas as well. Again, I joked about it earlier on. Is this Bloodborne? Run R1 into a mash is definitely, those dash attacks come through. They cover so much ground. But those R2s come out here from the side of Kieran, who just keeps that the pain train going. A definite life lead on the side of Kieran by about 1,300 health, about 1,300 to about 634. But he's just chipping them down slowly but surely. Both sides still have their tiers. Good patient rolls coming out here on the side of Kieran. We see those empty jumps coming out here. Left and right. Goes for that empty jump again. Tries to bait out on a potential pressure. But that's going to be the tier gone for Heaven. Heaven's knocking on Heaven's door, I'm afraid, here. But the looks of things, as he's eating yet more damage. Force back in now. We see those crouch attacks come through here on the side. Very, very fast crouch attacks come through here on the side of Kieran. We see those R2s into a flaming strike to try and even this one out. And another flaming strike into an R2 comes out on the side of Heaven. But he's 45 HP and now he's 0. Oh, it is of the mind's constitution to make a heaven of hell. Or a hell out of heaven. I was 14. That was deep once. Okay, LB.
I think you're cooking a little bit too hard with the Heaven references right now. I could be wrong, but just really, really good play across the board today. I think we've seen, and Kieran really did. Just showed how strong boys counting can really be, right?